An initial public offering, it's a big event for a company. It's a payoff of a lot of work and it's a great way to raise a lot of capital. However, as we saw with Circle.com's recent IPO, you can have a situation where you don't raise nearly as much money and that has financial complications. So the IPO we're going to talk about is Circle.com, which I have over here. It says, make money movement your competitive edge. This is a near instant, low cost global stablecoin transaction company. This is what they do. They focus on financial transactions so institutions can have seamless, near instant global money movement across previously fragmented networks. So they're trying to pull this all together. A very popular tech company with a lot of interest. This is what they're doing. So, how much did they raise? They sold 34 million shares, 14.8 issued by the company, and 19.2 from existing shareholders at $31 a share. The deal attracted demand reportedly 25 times greater than the available shares at price and cutoff, underscoring how much enthusiasm there was for this company. So, in total dollars, they raised 1.1 billion, and the stock was up 168% on the first day. And when I wrote this a few days ago on June 13th, the stock was at 133. So in the prospectus, it says the IPO raised just under a billion, 996 million, 430 million approximately went into the treasury as additional funds to operate the business. 562 million approximately went to shareholders who sold at the offering. So great news for the company. Well, it depends on who you ask. So let's think about stakeholders. Are all stakeholders excited because the stock went way up after the IPO? Maybe, maybe not. So early investors certainly are. Those people who funded the business, maybe through private equity or venture capital, may be thrilled because they can liquidate shares they've held for years. This is a liquidation event. According to CNBC, private investors are desperate for the exits so they can distribute back to their investors. So when you're raising money, you fund Circle, you wait years. Now you want to have a liquidation event so you can return money to investors. That's the hard part of this type of investing. It probably reflects a multi-year drought in IPOs. I'll get to that later, and a strong desire for early investors to get some liquidity. How about employees? Same thing. Employee stock ownership is a big carrot. This is why people work at startups largely. Team members may want to sell their shares to diversify their investments, buy a home, or simply retire. But senior management has to think about something different because that big increase in the IPO means that they raise less money. So it's a big issue if you're in senior management. According to Fortune, company insiders combined left a gigantic amount of money on the table by agreeing to a price that was far below what investors were willing to pay. It went out at around 31. Investors were willing to pay far more than that on the initial public offering. That left on the table quoted figure was the seventh largest in the history of IPOs since 1980. So how much did they leave on the table? Had the offering been done at 107 rather than 31, they would have raised over 4 billion. Instead, they raised around a billion, as I said before, so they left 3 billion on the table. Now, that's painful. But investment bankers who put these deals together are smart, capable people. They want the IPO to succeed. An IPO is an art, not a science. So how do they do this? How do these bankers determine the IPO price? Well, they look at comparables. Let's say that Circle has a price, Circle's industry trades at a price earnings ratio of 30, meaning that the stock price is 30 times higher than earnings per share on average. You wouldn't want the price of the IPO at a PE that's far higher than 30. That's out of line with your industry. So that's one factor. Discounted cash flow. Circle generates inflows and outflows of cash. Let's discount them all back using a discount rate to determine the company's worth. The big factor here is probably market conditions because, as we saw with the quote earlier, IP volume has been sharply lower for the past few years. A lot of investors are intensely interested in new companies going public. Interest just blew up. So let's wrap up by measuring the financial impact. And one way to measure it is the debt to equity ratio, which is total liabilities divided by shareholder equity. So let me use some simple math. Let's say that Circle has $5 million in liabilities and $1 million in equity before the IPO. Then they have the IPO. Let's say they raise 1.5 million. Total equity goes to 2.5 million. The ratio debt to equity is 5 million in liabilities divided by 2.5 million stockholders' equity. It's a ratio of 2. Now let's assume that they raise less money through the IPO. Let's assume they only raise $1 million through the IPO. Total equity increases to 2 million rather than 2.5. So the ratio is now 5 million liabilities divided by 2 million, lower stockholders' equity. The ratio goes up. When less equity is raised, the debt to equity ratio increases. Why is that important? The company has more liabilities for every dollar of equity, meaning the company is more leveraged. Higher leverage makes it more difficult to raise capital moving forward. Now, a caveat, many tech companies don't carry debt because they don't have consistent earnings to pay debt. However, as these companies grow over time, they may take on debt as they scale, and having a higher debt to equity ratio makes that more difficult. So, food for thought. So, the takeaway here is that an initial public offering is a great way to raise capital and a big payoff for your business. However, if there's much bigger interest in your IPO, then the investment bankers think you may raise far less money, and this has an impact on your debt to equity ratio and also on your financials moving forward.